What's up, Fight Fam? I'm here today with champion Felipe Rocha. He's a school owner of Artistry BJJ. He is a middleweight champion, a light heavyweight champion, and he's currently fighting for the heavyweight title for Fury. I'm excited to have you, dude. You beat me up personally at your gym. Yeah, man, give me the 30,000 mile look of who you are.
Oh, first of all, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. Well, as you guys know, my name is Felipe Rocha. I've been training Jiu Jitsu since 2009. Originally started with Gracie Baja under Marvin Lee. Great friend of mine, which I'll be teaching a seminar at his gym next week, by the way. So if you guys are in Long Island, check it out. And yeah, so I've been around. I've trained with some really good people. Spent some time with Marcelo, Bernardo Faria. Trained with Andre Galvao, JT Torres. And then eventually I found a home under Murillo Santana, who's a coach that I really clicked with as far as just life and jiu-jitsu goes. And instantly, like, I knew that was the guy I wanted to get my black belt under. So yeah, so got my black belt under him. It's great, like, best coach I've ever had. And yeah, man, that's it. Now we're focused on MMA, trained out at ACS under Drew Ratajczyk. And right now, like how Scotty just said, we're preparing to fight for the heavyweight title for Fury on April 23rd.
Hell yeah.
So, in a little rundown, that's basically me. I'm a jiu-jitsu guy, transitioned into MMA, and now looking to leave my mark in that sport as well.
Hell yeah, dude, that's awesome. Rolling, you're one of the strongest humans. You don't appear to be that big, but when you're on top of me, I was like, this is the strongest person I've ever rolled with. But yeah, you got some dense muscle, dude, so I definitely think you can make an impact. You're essentially going from, so middleweight's 185, and then you fought for 205.
Yeah.
And I feel like you were undersized in that match. The dude was huge, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right, yeah.
That match for weigh-ins, dude, I didn't have to cut anything at all. Like, I normally walk around, like, 208, 207, you know? So if I just went, like, one night without drinking water, and I was on weight the next day.
Right. And now you're doing heavyweight, which is 205 and up.
Yeah.
Do you know your opponent already?
I think his name was Matthew Costello. I may have chopped that up terribly, and if I did, Matt, I'm sorry. You know, no disrespect. Yeah, so he's also 4-0. From the previous match that I've seen, he's a pretty good boxer, you know. So it'll be interesting because I personally don't think he's ever faced anyone like myself, you know, that can grapple to my skill level. Right. You know, so that'll be great. And I also, you know, haven't fought anyone that strikes with the same power that he's able to be in a heavyweight. You know, I expect him to be able to hit really hard. So that's gonna be a good challenge, man. You know, because I think that's the great thing about martial arts is how we're able to challenge ourselves in ways like that. You know, because so the weight doesn't really bother me. Like, I don't fear it. Like, I welcome all challenges because at the end of the day, I just want to be able to look back on it and just be like, man, I really did that. Like, that was awesome. Hell you know, be able to tell my kids about it. You know, you remember when Daddy went and fought this guy who was like 300 pounds and I was like 200. It was crazy. So I think it's just really cool. It excites me. You know, it gets me going every morning.
Yeah, dude, I mean, your light heavyweight match was a barn burner, I heard. It was like just back and forth, crazy. And
yeah.
I heard people, I didn't get to see it myself, but I went and I was like all over it, you know, having trained with you. And it seemed like what everyone was saying was that that's the highest level amateur match that they've seen.
Yeah.
Or professional match like a Fury.
So it was great because James was, he wrestled for Ohio State, I want to say. Maybe I'm wrong, but I believe it was Ohio State. But I know he was like a state national champion 2 times. Great wrestler, you know? So for me, that was like a great challenge because everyone that I faced before, they were never a grappler of that caliber, you know? So he was the guy that, it's like, okay, he should be able to stop what Felipe is good at, you know? So then that really, like, it got me going. I was like, okay, this is where I'm really gonna test myself. You know, and the fact that I was able to outscore him on takedowns, you know, to me that showed that where I stand. You know, that was the challenge I was looking for, a good way for me to test myself, because I plan on turning pro after this fight, you know, so there was nobody better for me to get that look and to test myself other than James, you know, who's an excellent, excellent fighter. You know, he sent me flying a couple of times as well. I just remember mid-fight, there was a time when I looked up, I see my feet in the air, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, I'm going for a ride. You know, I was like, I hope my fiance's not watching. Turn off the TV if you are. But that was great. That was the first time I actually got to show a lot of my striking, you know, which is something that I've spent a lot of time working on. You know, coming from just a jiu-jitsu background, you know, there's not many strikes in jiu-jitsu at all, really.
Right.
You know, so it's been different going from just grappling to incorporating striking with the grappling, you know, and just learning to move in different ways, not be so tense and all. So it's been a different experience, you know. And my previous matches, I kind of felt like everyone sort of just gave me the takedown in a way,
Right.
you know, to where like I knew with James that like, no, this is gonna be the fight to where takedowns are gonna have to be set up. If I do get him down, it's gonna be hard because this guy is like top of the line wrestler, you know. So that was a great test. And now, you know, with Matt next fight, this is gonna be another good one. Right before I go pro, because this should be, you know, just based on the weight difference, this should be like the fight to where I'm like, oh man, like I can't let this dude touch me, or it should be like a little harder to get him down because he's so heavy.
Right.
You know, so I love it, man. You know, all these challenges, it's just great for me. You know, that's what I enjoy.
Yeah, it's interesting that, you know, a lot of times when you see fighters going through the amateur circuit, they essentially get on a win streak and then they essentially stay comfortable throughout their time that they're an amateur, and then they immediately think that they want to go pro and then it's going to be the same. But you find that a lot of times the amateurs going to pro, they didn't spend enough time of like being tested. But it's like, seems like you already know that you're trying to find the hardest test that you can get before you go pro. You know, don't want to learn the hard way.
100%. Exactly, because you gotta understand, here's the thing. Amateur, like, yeah, it's a nice little ego boost, you know, like the things you accomplish. It's, you know, it looks good, you know, I could show my friends and everyone, be like, oh guys, look, I'm tough. I got all these belts. But the moment you turn pro, like that all erases, like it no longer matters, you know? So now, once you go pro, now we're actually fighting for money. We're making a living off of this, right? So any experience that I needed to have, I much rather have approached this at amateur to where it's like now when I go pro, because at MMA, the careers are so short. The window is very, very small. So now I want to approach my pro career already having faced every adversity that there is to face, you know? And also like just besides the actual like fighting, you know, welcoming like punches, kicks, and all that, learning to compete in MMA is different, you know, because coming from mostly a jiu-jitsu background to where, you know, back in my day, there wasn't as many super fights as there is now. You know, you had your Nagas, your Grappler's Quest, IBJJF, and you got like 20 matches going on at once. So you're never really the center of attention. You know what I mean? To where everyone is just watching strictly you. So learning to perform all these new skills in the spotlight, knowing that this is being televised, you know, it's scary, you know? And knowing that like that man that's like locked in this cage with me right now, he could separate consciousness from my body at any moment, you know? It's different than just grappling someone.
Yeah.
You know, and it's the craziest rush I've ever felt.
Right.
Yeah. So like my first fight lasted 40 seconds. And I remember as soon as I left the cage, they were talking to me about the fight, and I'm like, I don't remember any of that.
Yeah, right.
That was insane.
Yeah.
It was great
A lot
experience.
of times, people were telling you what happened in the match, and you're like, I don't even remember that.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Another crazy thing, we're talking about just like how scary it is to be in the cage. It like knocks your performance down. No matter like how or where you are, you almost are like a slower, lethargic version of yourself than when you're in the gym. So like that's like one of the biggest benefits of competing is that you're going to see how you perform with adrenaline.
Yes.
And it's like one thing is to be on a stage grappling, let alone someone's going to be hitting you. And on top of that, it's like the fear of like your life could possibly be in the ref's hands. So it's like, You know, if something goes wrong, you have to like rely on someone else to make sure they pull this dude off of you. You know, he doesn't get like 6 more hits in or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
So it's like pretty much the closest you can get to being like a Spartan or a samurai or a Viking. As close as we can get to it.
And I think like every man like needs to experience something like that. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be MMA per se, right? But something that brings out that side of you to whether it's through grappling or just like sparring at the gym. You know, I think it's healthy to go through that because, you know, the world is crazy, man. You know, lots of crazy things happen out there, and you never want your first experience to anything like of that matter to happen in a situation to where you're totally unprepared for.
Because you'll freeze.
You know, you'll freeze 100%. Even trained fighters, depending on if they're not fully aware of how to control their adrenaline and everything, they will freeze as well. You know, and I tell all my students, I'm like, look, I will never force you to compete. So, but if you come to me and you tell me this, what your goals are, this is what you want, you know, of course I'm going to set the expectations very high for you, but I would never force you to do it. But with the way we train, I mean, you came and you trained in my gym, you know, like we train very hard, you know, because we try to keep it as realistic as possible. Because like I tell them, if it ever comes to a scenario to where you're under that stress, to where you have to perform, this is nothing new to you. Like you've been there, but at least here we're performing it in a safe environment to where you're not gonna get hurt.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, just real quick on how we came to be acquaintances, I went to the EBI qualifier in El Paso, and I met Risky Nick. I don't know his last name.
Navarro.
Nick Navarro. Man, and it, after the competition, it was just like we all just like linked minds. It was me, this dude named Couch from Dallas, and then Risky Nick, and we were just like hanging out. He asked me for something. I was like, oh yeah, sure, dude. And we are just like talking, and I was like, he's like, where do you train at? And I was like, Houston. He's like, oh, my boy trains down there. You got to train with him. I was like, dude, I love visiting other gyms. Who is he? And he was like telling me all about you. And he's like, yeah, he'll definitely wreck you. And I was like, that's what I'm looking for. I was like, I want someone to beat me up. And he's like, oh, he'll do it for you. He told me all about you. He's like, just hit him up on Instagram, tell him I sent you, and he'll hook you up. And so then I was reaching out to him on Instagram. I had to cancel one day, and it was literally eating at me. I was like, man, you told this guy you're gonna be there. Now you can't be there. Get your ass there. And one of the first things that stuck out to me is like, so right now, currently, you're training. I think it's like your garage.
It's my garage.
And you're locking down a new place. Mm-hmm. Well, something that strikes out to me is like if someone's training in their garage, they run a school out of their garage, they are dedicated. Like this isn't like, you know, someone with money who went and found a spot in a mall and is like, oh, I'm gonna open up a jiu-jitsu business because I know it'll make money. Now this is a guy who cares enough that he's bringing people to his house to train.
Yeah, 100%.
I found that out immediately when I started training with you guys. I mean, it was just a great class. I learned some good stuff, and then me and you got after it, and it was so funny, the dynamic of jiu-jitsu changes where it's like I was going against your purple belt and I'm like doing my moves and I feel confident, and I go against you and it's like I was not doing anything. I was literally just like trying to frame the whole time, and I was like, man, what happened to everything you were just doing? Yeah. But yeah, man, I'm really happy to have met you, and I definitely want to mix it up some more.
Yeah,
I need that side control pressure you got.
Oh man, you were putting it on me too, man. Like there's certain spots I'm just like, I felt the risk, and I'm just like, I cannot let this go any further.
Right.
You know, I felt like my inner self starting to freak out a little bit, like no, can't let him get that. You know, but yeah, like you said, I'm glad to have met you. Thank you, Nick. Huge shout out to Nick Navarro, who's fighting today, actually.
What?
Yeah, he's getting in the cage today. I think he is doing middleweight. I think so, yeah. But anyway, like he's fighting today. He's also going pro after this. So yeah, love that dude. Yeah, great guy. You know, so shout out to Nick Navarro. Best of luck tonight.
Hell yeah, Nick's a beast, and he's a great dude.
Oh yeah, strong. You think I'm strong? Nick is strong.
Yeah.
That dude, I don't know what he eats for breakfast, man, but that dude is insanely strong.
Yeah, well, he's been doing it since he was a kid, right?
Yeah, and he's got some of the best work ethic like I've ever encountered.
Right.
You know, like dude trains pretty much like 24 hours a day. Like he lives it. You know, he's one of the guys that pushed me a lot and still does. You know, whenever I watch him, how much he trains, I'm just like, I gotta keep up with him. You know, like, cause he's one of my closest friends. So it's like, it's a healthy little like rivalry to where I'm like, can't let him out-train me.
Yeah.
You know, I gotta keep up with him. So then in the long run, like we just end up making each other better.
Yeah, and man, us men, males, I mean, you know, females too, it's like you need that. A lot of people will define that as like toxic masculinity, but you know, it goes to the idea that if all your boys are doing push-ups, you're not going to be the one to not do push-ups.
Exactly.
You know, it's like, you know, same thing here. When I see someone staying after class, I'm like, well, I'm not leaving early.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to stay, what are you teaching over here, you know?
Yeah. No, I'm always the last one to leave the mat. It's always been like that since when I first started jiu-jitsu. Like I became like hooked very, very quick. I remember after my third class, I was about like 16 years old. And I came home and I told my parents, I was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Hell yeah.
You know, like I was obsessed with it. I've never taken any time off besides when I hurt my meniscus one time. I had a partial tear that took me out for like 3 months. But other than that, never stopped training. I'm always doing some kind of work. And, you know, I love jiu-jitsu. It's like you say, you know, you could really tell that I care, you know. And jiu-jitsu's brought me like great things, man. I met my fiance through jiu-jitsu, and we just had a kid recently. Some of my best friends, Nick, all my students are like family to me, you know. And I can't imagine my life without it. And to me, I take great pride to be able to carry that jiu-jitsu flag in MMA, you know, because now we've reached a point in MMA to where people look at jiu-jitsu as if like, oh, jiu-jitsu doesn't really work. You know, like as long as you learn to kind of just nullify it, like, you know, just stay back, elbows in, it doesn't work. And being that I've had 4 fights so far and 3 of them have been finished by submission, I'm like, no, jiu-jitsu does work. You know, it's great. Everyone should train. So it makes me happy to be able to do that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's a fight going around on Instagram right now where it's like these 2 dudes, 2 and 2, and they're like arguing, and then they essentially go to the parking lot and start fighting. And immediately one just ducks under and picks him up and goes to slam him. And like as the dude's like flying through the air, he's like, no takedowns, no takedowns. And, you know, like,
IBJJF rules. That's great. Who do you got on the fights tonight?
Yeah, so the fights, man. So first I want to watch Bo Nickel and Jamie Pickett. I've actually trained with Jamie, and he's good. But man, I really want to see that high level wrestling, you know, be put into work. And then as far as the Jon Jones fight and Cyril Gahn, man, it's like, no. As far as like skill wise, when Jon Jones left, no one was even close to that. No. So now to be is like, does ring rust exist? You know, is he going to come back in and be a little slower, a little more lethargic, just because he hasn't done it in a long time? And Cyril's been pretty active. So I guess for me that'll be like the biggest test is like, will Jon Jones look like his former self, or will he be a little rusty? But I can't root against Jon Jones. That's just not a smart bet.
And that's what I always say. Anytime Jon Jones fights, man, to me he's never lost. Like I understand, was it Matt Hamill, right? Yeah. The illegal shot, you know. But as far as just like being straight up outclassed in the cage, it's never happened. Right. You know? So Jon Jones is always a safe bet. I do think that it's a little gutsy of him to get back in after a 3-year layoff against Cyril Gahn, you know, especially considering that Jon Jones put on like over 50 pounds of muscle. Right, or muscle, I mean, so he kind of look a little chubby. But anyway, I'm sure it's a lot of muscle. But it'll be interesting to see him move with that extra weight put on. You know, because at light heavyweight, I want to say he wasn't the fastest guy, but he wasn't slow either. But now with all that weight put on, how is he going to be able to move with a guy like who's known for his movement? Right. You know? I think that eventually Jon Jones is going to start to kind of panic a little bit with Cyril Gahn's movement. Because Cyril Gahn, he can be 3 miles away and hit you with a jab. Right. You know, he's just that fast. So I think that eventually that's going to frustrate Jon, and that's when his wrestling side is going to come out. Right. And I think he's going to start trying to, you know, cut him off and just get him down because he's going to start getting tired. I personally, if I was Jon, but I would have took probably like a fight or 2 with like some lower level opponents just to kind of adjust moving with that extra weight on. But then again, Jon Jones is an incredible athlete. You know, the whole family, crazy athletes. So I'm sure he knows what he's doing.
Right.
You know, but that's gonna be a hell of a match.
Yeah, I'm excited. There's gonna be a big group of us watching it at our coach's place today or tonight. But yeah, you know, it's like a lot of times too, ego plays a part because Jon Jones is known for being like, no, I want to beat him what he's good at.
Yes.
And it's like, man, I don't know if that's the smartest move against Cyril Gane after a 3-year layoff. You know, you might want to do some wrestling. It's like every time I think that someone's going to use their strong point of like wrestling and get people to the ground, it's like they almost don't do it. They just like want to get into a striking match.
Yeah.
And so that could happen to Jon Jones where he's like doesn't want to rely on the wrestling and try to like outclass him striking.
Right. And I'll be interested to see if those oblique kicks are going to work for him this fight. Because, you know, Jon Jones, he's notorious to be able to use that to maintain distance, you know. But being that Cyril Gane is a fighter, he doesn't fight in the pocket much, you know. He kind of likes to pick you apart from far. And also, this is the first time when Jon Jones actually fights someone his size.
Right.
You know, because he used to tower over people in light heavy, right? So now that, you know, Cyril Gane being his size, how is the framing, how is that distance gonna work? You know, is he still gonna be able to keep that? You know, so that would be very interesting to see the evolution of Jon Jones, you know, to see how he adapts to that. So I'm very much looking forward to that.
Yeah. There's like, some people argue that he's not the greatest of all time. You know, some might say it's Demetrius or GSP or Khabib, but it's like if he wins this fight, he's the greatest of all time.
Oh, easily. I believe I seen on Facebook the other day someone post, I may be wrong, but I believe since 2012, every fight that Jon Jones has been a championship fight.
Right, yeah.
Over 10 years, dude. You know? So, I mean, the argument there about Jon Jones being the greatest of all time, sure, you know, he's had his mishaps outside of the cage. You know, there was the steroid that he got busted for, which I think that like the amount that he had in his body is now legal. So he's pleading to have that erased off his record.
Dang.
Yeah, it's crazy, you know. Yeah, I'm sure he's not the greatest person in the world, but you can't deny his skill.
100%.
You know, the man is excellent at what he does. You know, until someone comes along and proves me otherwise, like I stand by that. Yeah. You know, not saying he's a good dude, you know, but great fighter.
Right.
You know, just like in Jiu-Jitsu, how people, they like to think, they say that like Jiu-Jitsu kind of pushes away like the bad people. That's not true. Right. You know, you could be really good at Jiu-Jitsu and still not be a great person. Yeah. You know, so, and I think that's like the case with Jon Jones. He might not be the greatest guy in the world, excellent fighter.
Yeah. Well, dude, I could talk to you all day, but I know you got your team waiting on you. So I just want to ask you, like, you know, one last question or your thoughts on if someone young is watching this well, I don't know why I say young, but someone is looking to get into jiu-jitsu or just better their lives in general. What advice do you have? Because you're ultra successful, so I know they can pull something from you.
So as far as finding the right place for you to train at, right? I know in jiu-jitsu they have this huge, like, you know, you find that one team, you're loyal to that one team, you will die by that one team. I don't believe in that, right? I believe that you got to find the right coach for you. You know, it's like how I've had plenty of students come in and want to sign up right away. I'm like, no. Let's take the free trial, right? And I want you to see that if you find that you click with me as a coach, you know, because jiu-jitsu is so special to me, I want you to have the same experience that I had. You know, I don't want this to be anything less than magical for you, you know, because I know how much jiu-jitsu has brought to my life to help me deal with like depression and all that, you know. So it's great. And I want someone to, anytime when they come into the gym, to look forward to it. They're like, I cannot wait to go to jiu-jitsu. I can't wait to see my coach, my friends. So definitely find the right coach that you click with, right? And being a beginner, the best thing that I could recommend to people is make sure that your training has a purpose. You know, I feel like sometimes, especially when we're just starting out in the sport, we're trying to learn so much, like so fast, that our training, like we're kind of just training just to train. you know, to whereas like when I started, I was, in the beginning, that's kind of how I used to train. But then I found when I started evolving and getting better was when I would come up like, no, I'm working specifically on escaping side control, right? So every round that I would have, I would like purposely get my guard pass and like, this is what I'm working on, and just keep working until I got comfortable with set position, you know? And yeah, man, like train everything, train gi, no gi, like just love jiu-jitsu. You know, it's the best sport in the world.
Right.
Easily.
Yeah. I like what you said, man. A lot of time, for one, it seems like when I went to your gym, I was like, how is everyone here huge? I'm usually the big guy when I show up, and I'm usually like the outcast where no one wants to roll with me because I'm the biggest guy. And then I got to your gym, and I was like, there's a bunch of gorillas in here. Like, what's going on? But so yeah, a lot of times when people ask me about starting gyms, I'm like, man, you need to try out all the gyms because it's very important that you connect with your coach. So I agree with you on that. And then you're saying about how having focused training. You know, we just saw today, you know, with the white belts competing, you one, for the first time, you can see that they realize their holes. It's hard to realize what you suck at when you're comfortable with your teammates, right? And so, yeah, taking that focused approach to your training, and competitions can help you focus that, right? They show you what you need to work on, and then you can be like, you know what, I got mounted and I couldn't get out of mount.
Yes.
And a lot of times you won't notice that because, like, if I get on mount and I can't do anything with you, I'm just gonna dismount and just, you know, I'm not gonna crush you in mount and not let a white belt escape. You know, I'm gonna give them some opportunities to mess around, and I'll play with like submissions. But when you go against another person who's the same rank, they're not giving you anything.
No.
They're gonna squeeze it as hard as they can. And you know, when you go against higher belts, they're not gonna squeeze something as hard as they can.
Yeah.
So that look will show you is like, man, I need to be able to learn how to escape side control or mount when someone doesn't want to let me.
Yeah. And I know it can be hard in the beginning, man, to want to work those things, you know, but I can't tell you how many people that I've run into, man, that their jiu-jitsu just feels very scattered. You know what I mean? It wasn't like they never really took the time to refine things, and just, it's like everyone has their own little system in a way, you know? That's what I try to preach to my students. I'm like, you know, you're not gonna do every single thing I show you. You're not gonna do it the exact same way. Like, everyone's body type is different. And this is the fun of jiu-jitsu, right? This is what's great about it. Like, you pick your coach's brain, you take what he shows you, you take from your training partners, whatever you find on the internet, and you start to refine it for yourself, how it works for you. And then you develop your little system. You know, what you enjoy, what you find works for you. You know, so there's a lot of times when my students come to me, they're like, you know, like, I know you show this, and what if, can I change this a little bit? I'm like, does that feel good for you? It's like, yeah. Are you giving up position by doing that? No. Go ahead.
100%.
You know what I mean?
I like to incorporate.
I force them to like be creative and like, don't do it just as I say. You know, feel free to think for yourself as well. I like that approach.
Yeah, because, I mean, the better you get at jiu-jitsu, the more you realize there's no one right answer.
Exactly.
There's a million right answers.
Exactly, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's important for everyone to have,
100%.
you know.
And then when you're saying with the systems, man, it's so important. It's like, I had this one world-class black belt tell me one time, he was like, you don't need an ability or a technique for every position. You just need to know how to get to the same position every time. So like stand-up passing, there's like a million different ways you can stand-up pass, but he was just telling me, he's like, I want you to get to this position every time. So, you know, like that headquarters position where you're just like, you're penetrating with the knee and you can go like knee cut or back step. He was just like, wherever you're at, I want you to be able to get back to there because you can master this position. And he's like, and it's easier to force this position than trying to learn a bunch of different ways to pass from standing. So that's kind of like what you're saying. You need a system. And you see a lot with the white belts. They're just doing random stuff, you know? And it's like, you don't have to be like, okay, now I'm going to do the Kimura, or I'm not going to do this submission. It's like, no, dude, have like I'm going to frame. I'm going to test the arm drag. I'm going to test the Kimura. I'm going to pull on his head, right? It's like, I'm going to go through 1, 2, 3, and then start over. 1, 2, 3, not just like flailing around.
Exactly. Also, before we move away from this, a great advice that I actually heard at black belt, you know, that I wish I honestly would have heard this earlier. Don't focus on winning at the gym. You know, focus on improving, not proving.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
100%.
So then like you always hear like people like, man, like, don't worry about winning the gym so much. But it didn't fully sink in until like I was a black belt myself, and then I'm here and all I have to train with, which my students are great, but most people I have trained like white belts. Right. So now I have to force myself to improve. I have to purposely put myself in certain positions, because I tell them all the time that I can just play my A game, you don't do anything. Yeah. But then what do any of us learn?
Right.
You know what I mean? So yeah, so don't focus on winning, focus on improving, even if, let's say, if you're focusing on escaping the back, let's say today you didn't get out, but you didn't get submitted. Excellent. That's a little bit of progress. Next time, okay, now let's start stripping the seatbelt, fighting the hooks. Cool, more progress, steady improvement, because in the long run, that's gonna benefit you so much more than just trying to win every single round.
Right.
Just training doesn't matter. No one cares whether you win or lose.
Right. And it almost like hinders you. I tell people all the time, it's like you're trying too hard, dude. Like,
yeah.
If you try to beat me, you decrease your chances of trying to win. It's like, because if you start going ham and you're trying to like squeeze the hell out of me and you're like really trying to do something, well, one, you're telegraphing what you're trying to do. Mm-hmm. And then two, it's like, now I have to turn it up a little bit, whereas like if you just played it a little more calmly, you might be able to sneak something in on me or, finesse me a little bit. But if you're like squeezing with everything you got, it's like, if you're not going to be relaxed, there's just no way you're going to
see the veins popping out under the necks, and those are usually the people that end up quitting too, man. Because like their egos just end up getting the best of them. Yeah. If you notice the guys that really just have fun with the process, those are the ones that are in it for life, because they're just happy to be at the gym. Like, I'm not here to feed my ego, I'm here to learn this skill and just get better at it.
Right. Mm-hmm. Felipe, I appreciate you coming, man. It's been killer. How can people find you, support you, or anything?
You can follow me on Instagram, Felipe Rocha BJJ. I also have my gym's Instagrams, artistry_HTX. My next fight will be streamed on Facebook, and after that, we're going pro, and you'll be able to catch me on UFC Fight Pass.
Hell yeah.
And then hopefully, God willing, we'll have that UFC contract coming soon.
Dude, it's coming, dude. You deserve to be there, bro. Well, I appreciate you. And yeah, if you're in the Houston area, check out his gym, Artistry. I've been there. It's cool. He's looking to get a better location. And so they're moving up. So that's a good sign that what they're doing is the right thing. And you guys are always competing. I've commentated several times where I saw you guys. And it's like, what more can you ask from a gym that's competing? Their coach is one of the top guys in MMA. It's like, it doesn't get better than that, guys. So again, we appreciate y'all tuning in. We're out. Thank you, brother. That was cool.